Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, everything I've read this week, it's my weekly wrap-up. So I seem to have got through a ton of stuff this week. This feels like quite a lot to have read in the week. I think, to be fair, two of the books here are ones I'd started before this week. But yes, it's still definitely been a productive week for me reading-wise for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. I obviously just had my reading mojo on. So anyway, normal format for this weekly video. So I will talk to you about what I've been reading and then talk about what's been on the channel and what's coming up on the channel. Before I do that though, just a mini trailer for that final section of what's coming up on the channel. So I'm going to be doing a video which will go up on Tuesday, which is something a bit different for the channel. So Tuesday is Halloween, obviously, 31st of October. It is not a horror related video, but many people, perhaps myself included, will find it horrifying. So I'm going to do something in that video which may never have been done before on BookTube. We shall see. So yeah, if that's whetted your appetite, look out for that on Tuesday. Anyway, right, back to the books. So one of the things that I mentioned that I'd been reading or had started reading before this week was The Moonstone by Wilkie, which is the current pick for Classics and Company, the reading group run by Micah Cummins and Anne Novella. So in that, they read classic books and they invite a third booktuber to be a co-host kind of for that book. So they invited me to read along with them The Moonstone, as it's a classic, perhaps the classic or the first detective novel. I really enjoyed this. So it's a Victorian detective novel. So Wilkie obviously was a contemporary and friend of and collaborator with Dickens. I prefer Collins to Dickens. I find Dickens quite boring, whereas Collins is always fun. And this was no exception. So it's about this diamond called the Moonstone, which a nasty English soldier has stolen from India and brought back to the UK, and then bequeathed in his will to his niece, I think it is. And the stone then goes missing at a kind of party. And it's about the investigation into what has happened to the Moonstone. So it's told from the perspective of various different characters. The main part of the book, or most of the pages, are from the perspective of this guy who's like a kind of aging servant of the family. And I really, really enjoyed his sections. I found him very, very entertaining. Some of the other sections I didn't enjoy quite as much, but his sections were great. And overall, the mystery is really interesting. It's well done. It was compelling. It's definitely longer than it needed to be. So it's 600 pages. It was originally, like some of Dickens' work, it was originally serialised in a magazine, and I suspect that led to a certain amount of padding on Collins's part. But still, a really entertaining and interesting book, and an important book in the evolution of the mystery genre, which is a genre I love. So I was very happy to have read that. The other thing that I started before this week was From a Buick by Stephen King, which I finished. So I think when I spoke about this last week, I'm trying to remember, I think when I spoke about this last week, I was at the point in the book where I was like, well, I'm quite enjoying it, but it is going on a bit. And it's a book that kind of doesn't have a plot as such, or it feels for a long time like it doesn't have a plot. So it's about this mysterious car that is found by these state troopers. And the book is very much centred around the barracks where that they work out of. And in particular, it's about a young guy whose father was a state trooper who's died, who starts kind of doing odd jobs and things like that, and hanging out at the barracks and chatting to the guys there to try and make a connection to his dead father and understand more about his father's life. Anyway, they've got at this barracks in a shed this mysterious car that they found, which is clearly not of this earth. So it looks like a normal car at first glance, but when you investigate it further, there's something weird going on with it. And really, the book is a series of stories that the various of the state troopers tell to this young guy about the car, how they discovered it, weird things that have happened with it, and so on and so forth. So for a long part of the book, it kind of feels a bit plotless. It's got this central idea of this car, but not much happens in terms of plot development. You just get a series of weird things that have happened. But by the end of the book, King actually manages to wrap it all together really nicely, and I ended up really enjoying it. I will do a proper review of this at some point. It's part of my ongoing project to read all the Stephen King books I haven't read yet. But yeah, I enjoyed it more than I expected to. And this is one where I'm still not sure if I'd read it before. I'd marked it on Goodreads as read, but I didn't remember anything about it going through it. So anyway, I have now read it and I did enjoy it. So obviously it is also Occult Detective October at the moment. So I read 3 things for Occult Detective October. So this being the final week and a half of Occult Detective October, it was like an anything goes week. So I had a few things that I read for that. So I read the first of the Dresden Files books by Jim Butcher, Stormfront. So Harry Dresden, this series, obviously loads of people love this series, and it's often, when you talk about occult detectives nowadays, Dresden often comes up. So he's a wizard who investigates stuff, and the world he lives in is kind of basically our world, but with magic stuff going on as well. So yes, loads of people love this book. I did not love this book. I really didn't enjoy this book at all. And I'm probably going to make a video about it at some point. Yeah, I thought, and a lot of people have said to me in the comments, or I've seen people saying videos, the Dresden Files books get good from about book 4 onwards. I'm not prepared to read another 3 bad books to get to a good one about a wizard, because I'm not really into wizards anyway. So yes, did not enjoy the Dresden Files book. By contrast, and when I do my video about the Dresden Files, I think I'm going to do a comparison with this book. So this book, in many ways very similar, but I thought much better. So this is Necrotown by Alexander Nader, the first of the Mountain City Chronicles. I got this in the Your Paper Quest subscription box, which I did a video about a little while ago. I really, really enjoyed this. So this is similar to the Dresden Files book in that it's about a guy who's a detective. He's called Sam Flint, investigating kind of, crimes, but there's like magical stuff involved. Unlike the Dresden Files, which is kind of set in our world but with magic, this is set in a magical world but with elements of our world, if that makes sense. I just thought this was really good. There's a really good central relationship between Sam Flint, the detective, and his wife, who's like a kind of mythical creature who can like turn into a fox, things like that. So that element of it was really good. Just their central relationship was just fun to read. But the actual mystery is really well done as well. I really enjoyed the mystery side of it and the way it ties back to the central character's own life. I just thought it was a very skillfully done book. So yeah, definitely recommend this. It's on Kindle Unlimited. If you like that kind of thing, I would definitely check it out. And then also I had to read, I'm wearing my Occult Detective magazine t-shirt today, so obviously I had to read the latest issue of Occult Detective magazine, which was great. So really, really enjoyed this. I'm going to do a video review of this as well. So it's basically, if you don't know Occult Detective magazine, it's a magazine that anthologizes stories, like occult detective short stories, and has some reviews and some non-fiction kind of articles as well. So articles about the genre of occult detective fiction. So this had, I don't know how many stories it's got. It feels like probably, I'm going to say kind of about 10, getting on for 10 stories. All of which were fun, all very different from each other, so it never feels kind of samey. There were a couple of stories in this edition that I thought were excellent. In particular, one called The Nature of Panic by an author called Simon Avery, which is a longer one, kind of novella length, which was just really, really good. And there was also an excellent article called The Occult Detective Genre's Potential for Radical Representation and Social Justice by a writer called Maria de Blasi, which is a really interesting kind of breakdown of how occult detective fiction started out being basically, in the Victorian age being, like white guys, straight white guys solving mysteries, and often with, kind of some racial overtones. So, like, mysterious things, like mysterious artifacts from the East coming over and causing problems. So, quite reactionary. And whereas now occult detective fiction is much more likely to have, really positive representation. Just a really, really interesting article, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But yeah, overall, I can't recommend Occult Detective magazine highly enough. If you like this kind of thing, it's always an entertaining read and a great way of discovering like new writers who you might not have heard of otherwise. So very, very good. Right, on to something completely different then. I also read CB Angel by Larry Adcock, which was sent to me by Roy from the channel Roy Reads Anything. So Roy read this for Garb August. He read a couple of like CB radio based books to, as examples of books that kind of cash in on a trend. So this was just fun. I really did enjoy it. So it's about a couple of truckers. So this pair of friends who like drive a truck around, transporting stuff, and get involved with this gangster. There's this woman like on the airwaves who they call the CB Angel, who kind of gives them tips and advice and saves them from trouble a few times. And it becomes a kind of adventure story, really, about the relationship between them and her and this gangster. So it was a fun read. There was some nice kind of comedy and things like it. It very much. I mean, it felt a bit like a Burt Reynolds movie at times. That kind of buddy comedy, style of things was quite entertaining. In the second half, it becomes more of a men's adventure style book and has quite a lot of action, which I quite enjoyed as well. So yeah, overall, definitely a fun read. Roy, in his review, said he found it a bit jarring, the kind of switch from it being, a light-hearted kind of knockabout comedy to, something a bit more violent, and I can see why, but I did enjoy both halves of it. So this is a book that is going to be going on a book tour. So I was the first stop on the book tour. So Roy has proposed that, as we do sometimes on BookTube, that we pass this book around. So we send it on to a stream of booktubers who read it and talk about it. So if you are a booktuber, if you've got a booktube channel and you're watching this, and you fancy reading a slightly very dated book from when did it come out? 1977. So from the 70s. This is a UK edition from 1981. So if you fancy reading a kind of men's adventure knockabout buddy comedy, based around CB radios, then leave a comment on this video or contact me in some other way, and we can arrange for me to send this on to you for you to read and talk about on your channel. And then the final thing I read this week was Everything the Darkness Eats by Eric LaRocca. So I just finished this last night. I'm still processing it, it would be fair to say. It's an interesting book. One of the things that's interesting about this book is it seems to have had quite a lot of quite negative reviews from people. So I think Eric LaRocca is an author who made a big splash with Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, which is, it was like a kind of a bit of a breakout horror novella that lots of people really enjoyed. I thought it was good, but I didn't enjoy it as much as some other people. I preferred You've Lost a Lot of Blood, which was something he wrote subsequently. This is, I think, his first novel, albeit it is, as you can see, quite a short novel. And it's weird. It's like deliberately weird and kind of uncomfortably weird at times. So it's about this small town where there's been a series of disappearances, particularly of older people, but not exclusively of older people. It's about this detective in the town who's gay, who's investigating the disappearances, who then becomes a victim of, he and his husband become a victim of crime themselves. So you end up with a storyline about that. And then there's also another guy in the town who's lost his wife in a traffic accident and is kind of trying to come to terms with that and come to terms with the injuries that he sustained in that accident. who kind of gets involved in you know, these disappearances as well. So it can feel slight, not disjointed exactly, but you've got, you know, twin storylines going on throughout it, which I thought was quite well handled. Eric LaRocca's writing can be a bit kind of overly flowery or overly ornate, maybe is the word at times, but I didn't mind that at all, to be honest with you. Often I do, but I didn't in this. And it's got an interesting ending. So there's a lot to process with this book. I think I liked it. In fact, I'm sure I definitely liked it. But it has its flaws, but overall I liked it. I'm trying to decide whether to do a full review of it or not. I think I probably will. But yeah, definitely an interesting horror book, and quite different from a lot of stuff you see out there at the moment. So that's everything I read this week. In terms of currently reading, so I'm currently reading another book for that Stephen King project. So Black House by Stephen King and Peter Straub, which you can see is long. My bookmark's in the wrong place because I'm reading it on my Kindle, but I'm about a little over a fifth of the way through, and enjoying it so far. So it's the follow-up to King and Straub's book The Talisman, which I've read a couple of times, but it doesn't feel like it has, you know, it's not like a continuation of the plot of The Talisman. It's more like, you know, it has similar themes and some of the same characters and is set in the same universe. So it's about this small town where there's a serial killer operating who's kidnapping and killing and eating children. So it's quite grim. And really, so far, it's just about the town. It is definitely slow. It's definitely slow paced, and you are meeting lots and lots of different characters in the town and seeing, you know, the impact of these crimes on them. But I'm enjoying it. It's definitely readable, as King and Straub always are. So yeah, enjoying so far. And this will probably be the last book I read this month. We've got like 4 days left in the month. So I think I will definitely get it finished this month, but I'm not sure that I'll fit much else in. So that's what I've been reading. In terms of channel stuff then, so the last week I did my announcement video for the event Remember December, which is coming in December, which is a rereadathon, so an event focused around rereading books. So talked about prompts for that and things I'm going to be reading for that. I did a top 10 horror books from the last 10 years, which is quite fun. I did a video where I talked about some of the things I might be reading for my Read What You Own challenge, which starts on the 6th of November, so very soon, in just over a week. I did a video where I solve a Myrtle puzzle. So Myrtle, if you don't know, I don't know where my Myrtle book's gone. Myrtle, if you don't know, is like they're kind of logic puzzles, but framed around, you know, framed as murder mysteries. So I did a very silly video where I solved one of those, which not that many people watched, but the people who did watch it seem to have enjoyed it. So I think I'm going to do another one of those in the coming week. And I did a review of Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt. In the week ahead then, I'm going to do my TBR for November. So there's 2 events, well, I suppose 3 events I'm taking part in November. So Andrew from It Came From The Page is doing a novelisation November event for his patrons, of which I am one, so I'm taking part in that. I'm taking part in the Cryptid Readathon, which is being run by Jason from Jason's Weird Reads, Crystal from Fibre Artsy, and Sin from Sin's Book Nook. And I'll also be reading a couple of non-fiction things for non-fiction November. So yes, got TBR video for that. As I said, I'm going to do a review of Occult Detective magazine number 10. I'm going to do my surprise weird video on Halloween. So yeah, tune in for that and see something the likes of which have never been seen on BookTube. I think I'm going to do a review of The End of Alice by A.M. Holmes, which is a difficult book to review, so I think I'm going to do a review of it, but I haven't filmed it yet, and I may change my mind about that and review something else instead. So yeah, that's what's coming in the week ahead. Anyway, I will leave it there. Do let me know in the comments if you've read any of the things I talked about and what you thought of them. Let me know what you've been reading this week. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're really good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.